Scotiabank hockey tonight on the air from the southern banks of the Ottawa River, the beautiful national capital, Parliament Hill. Actually, Sidney Crosby used to run at Citadel Hill in Halifax. He called it Mother Nature's treadmill, and was he something in Game 2 of the series Friday night. Here come the Sens. They grabbed Game 1 5-4. Eric Carlson, a kid on defense, was a star in Game number 1. It was Christopher Letang, the hero, in Game number 2, a defenseman after that beautiful assist, and we'll get into that. You see the Penguins rolling into town tonight. The season series was 2-2, and now they're 1-1 after a couple of games in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Well, if they could learn to love Jarkko Hrudey, we're giving Ottawa fans, this is one of those how to win friends and influence people. Bringing Gary Roberts into Ottawa has got to be the worst thing we could possibly do. We're thrilled to have you, Gary.
Thanks,
Memorial Cup champ, Stanley Cup champion, and for obvious reasons, both your expertise on the Penguins, the rivalry, and fitness with Crosby. But first up, let's bring in Glenn Healy at the rink to tee up what the storyline you feel is going into tonight. Glenn.
It's all about Crosby. And why shouldn't it be about Crosby? Think about the number of hours teams have spent to try to stop Crosby. And Crosby, let's take a look at his numbers against the Ottawa Senators over the past 5 games. This is extraordinary. These are points. 4-2, 2, 3-2. Okay, so how do you stop Crosby? Well, the hard part is, and Bosman's done a really good job. Okay, when he plays with Kunitz and he plays with Guerin, you know that Bolchenkov and Phillips are on the ice. What happens, though, if he plays them the next 2 shifts with Malkin, and then 3 shifts later he puts him on the ice with Ruff? He is impossible to stop because of the way they have constantly thrown him over the boards. Crosby's approach to this is pretty simple. I expect the best anytime I play, anywhere, particularly on the road, but I am going to do whatever it takes to beat my opponent. And you can see it in his body language, and you saw it in the game winner in Game 2. So I don't have an answer to how to stop him. Maybe the expertise you talked about in the studio, Gary Roberts, you have the answer.
But Glenn, just before I leave you, you were saying you don't think it's going to be Crosby's night tonight.
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of focus on him, and no one's talking about that other guy who won the Conn Smythe, Malkin, and I think Malkin's got great body language. I saw him before the game. He looks loose, he looks light, he looks like he's into it. And when you get an athlete that is inspired and is into it and has that skill level, if he works tonight, look out, his talent will take over.
And promise, Ottawa fans, we'll get to the Senators here in just a minute, but we do want to stick with that storyline. Kelly, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm interested in your thoughts, Gary, about complimenting how they do that for each other. But Crosby probably more so with Malkin, because as Glenn said, when Malkin's in a funk, his body language just stinks. It's he expects so much from himself, whereas it seems like Crosby's the guy that get going. And then further to that, how do they not create any professional jealousy with that?
They're really good at it. Both those guys, when I was in Pittsburgh, they really pushed each other to be good every night. And if Crosby had a good night one night, Malkin would respond with a great night the next night, and vice versa. If Malkin had a good night, we all knew Crosby was going to have a good night. So it's a real good inter-competition between those guys. They push each other, and it's a great 1-2 combination.
Do they sit on the plane beside each other?
They're buddies. They're good. Gino's a great guy, and Sid's good. They're both really good with each other, and as a teammate, you can see how they really push each other.
What was your sense of that little tete-a-tete the other night?
Yeah, it looked like Gino was upset about something, and then Crosby was trying to console him. He was kind of giving him a little hug there. It was nice to see Sid's really grown in that capacity. He's really becoming the leader that everybody thought he would be, and that's just proof right there.
Sorry, Ron. 2 kinds of guys. Who's the more fiery personality?
Gino, actually. Gino is really fiery. He's very emotional. As you say, he shows his emotions on his sleeve a little more. Sid's really learned to control that. I think Sid's more patient, and he's matured over the last few years, and you can tell he lets the game come to him a little more than Malkin does.
What about Game 2, Gary? Peter Regan scores for Ottawa. They're already won Game 1. They go up 1-0. What did you think of the second game?
I thought it was a good game. I thought both games. I thought Pittsburgh was a little sluggish early on. They got scored on early in both games, and then they responded well. I thought in Game 2. I thought they took the game over physically. Crosby for sure. After that early goal, had a great shift. He set up Guerin for a chance. He got a chance to score himself. And then I think that set up the rest of the first period, where he ended up scoring late in the first period, and basically I thought Pittsburgh took over the game from there.
Actually, that's a good point. We should look at that shift. 19 minutes to go in the first period, Friday night at the Igloo, and look at Crosby go to work here.
How does he do that? Like, how does he generate so much power? Like, first two strides, and it doesn't matter if he's facing forward or backwards, and he gets that separation from the defender.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, in practice, I remember trying to get the puck off him, and basically you had to trip him to get the puck off him. So he's phenomenal at it. He's got that 10-2 going. His feet go this direction. 95% of the guys in the league can't do it, and nobody can do it at the speed in which he does it. Handle the puck and make plays in that way. I mean, it's on this play right here.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable to be able to do that. Spezza did a good job. What can Spezza do? He held him off as much as he could, and Crosby basically tires everybody out, makes a great play, and Letang gets the puck to the net.
Clearly, he has a lot of lower body strength there, and I know you've said in the past, beautiful stride right there, creating that separation. And you said before it's that core strength. But is he strong up top? Like, you think of a guy in my day, and you played against Mark Messier a lot. He was a big brute, and he's a lot of strength that way.
Yeah, the game's changed that way. I mean, the speed is everything, right? And Crosby's got unbelievable leg strength, unbelievable speed. Unbelievable nervous system. He's built for speed and power. And I talked about it a little earlier. His skates that he wears aren't stiff skates, so it allows him to flex forward a little more, get more power, more extension in his stride, and that's why he's as dominant as he is.
Andy O'Brien started. There's a good shot of it, Gary, and he doesn't tape the back of his skate. And you say they're really would floppy be the word? The leather is not stiff.
Yeah, he ties them up tight, I think, but they're still a soft skate. So it really allows him to flex his knee over his toe, and allows him to get that extension. Of course, to do that, you've got to have strong legs also. And Sid has unbelievable, powerful legs, and it allows him to get in those positions and fight guys off. And he's got a big butt, gets in front of guys, and literally you can't get the puck from this guy.
It's unreal, Ron, or Gary. Ron and I always are fascinated by watching Crosby in warm-up because he puts in a full day's effort in that. Like, that's really, it's not just going out there and getting a little feel for puck. That's a work ethic. And it's interesting to me when I watch amateurs or minor hockey, they don't put in the time or the effort or recognize the focus needed in warm-up. Can you talk to us about that, how focused he was to get ready?
Oh, yeah, unbelievable. His passion for the game, his preparation. I know in the morning skates, I didn't like to go on drills with him in Pittsburgh because basically he's at mock speed all morning. And by the time morning skates over, you're exhausted because you're trying to keep up to Crosby. He does it in pregame skates. He does it in the morning. He is a phenomenal athlete, and you watch his warm-up before games. You watch his feet. This is what he does. He does foot drills. He does high knees. This kind of stuff. This shows you right there. His nervous system is very, very good, and he is a speed guy.
How long will he warm up like that before he gets dressed?
Probably about 15 minutes. Not too much. You don't want to do too much of that stuff, but probably about 15 minutes of that stuff. Get your legs fired up, and for him, gets him going.
You took Steven Stamkos from a scratch at the start of the year a year ago to the Rocket Richard Trophy along with Sid this year, and we'll get into that a little bit in our second intermission of tonight's telecast. But Andy O'Brien has done for Sidney what you did for Steven Stamkos, and that he started with Andy O'Brien did with Crosby at the age of 13, Gary.
Correct.
What were the keys when you see him doing the Vince Carter, Ben Johnson, the only two other guys I've ever seen with the legs like that?
Yeah.
What was the secret of Crosby? Was it mechanics? Was it doing it right? Was it getting at it early? What do you think?
Well, I had Andy in Florida, so I'm aware of what he does, and Andy definitely that. It's all about technique and making sure your mechanics are good, and building off that, and then repetition. Lots of repetition of certain exercises that are specific for hockey and specific for skating, and Crosby did that, like you say, from the age of 13. He trained with Andy O'Brien and has worked on his legs and his feet ever since, and that's what the game is today. It's lower body strength and it's speed.